Since childhood, we've been taught that history is an exact science, detailing the past from ancient Egypt to the Roman Empire, encompassing figures like Alexander the Great and Charlemagne, along with the medieval era and the scientific revolution. We've encountered historical narratives through museum exhibitions, scientific books, and captivating films and novels. But amidst this wealth of knowledge, do we truly grasp every period's intricacies? Almost every inquiry finds a ready historian with an answer, leaving few white spots in history. Yet, as new research emerges, these gaps gradually diminish. But let's scrutinize our past more closely. Beneath the surface, we unearth peculiarities and inconsistencies often overlooked. Consider how painters of the Middle Ages depicted biblical and ancient figures as contemporaries, blurring historical accuracy. Questions arise, such as how ancient warriors wielded bronze swords when bronze hadn't yet been discovered. Moreover, why are there so few preserved monuments from the early Middle Ages and even earlier periods? Logically, antiquity should boast more, yet it's not the case. Further mysteries abound. Why did Ivan the Terrible claim direct descent from the Roman Emperor Augustus? Such enigmas should drive historians to delve deeper into our past, yet many remain unresolved. These uncertainties beg the question, do we genuinely comprehend our history? What constitutes history and chronology? History encompasses factual events from the past, distributed across a timescale, while chronology orders these events on a timeline. The recording of events by people began a period we now recognize as history. However, the traditional version of history we accept today wasn't always prevalent. Until the 16th century, there was no continuous chronology. At best, people could estimate events within a 150-year timeframe. This led to distortions and the need to piece together disparate years into a cohesive narrative of human civilization. Eusebius of Caesarea, a 4th century church historian, laid the groundwork for chronology, but his works exist only in fragments, primarily preserved by Blessed Jerome's Latin translations. In the 14th century, Nicephor Callist attempted to write a new history but merely echoed Eusebius's work. It wasn't until the 16th and 18th centuries that historians like Joseph Scaliger and theologians like Dionysius Petavius developed the foundational works of chronology, shaping our understanding of history to this day. This version of chronology relied heavily on interpreting numerical data from the Bible and inaccurate astronomical calculations, leading to foundational dates like the creation of the world. Discrepancies arose, with various interpretations suggesting different dates for significant events, such as the creation of the world and the founding of Rome. For instance, while the generally accepted version places Rome's founding in the 8th century BC by Romulus and Remus, an alternate theory suggests it was founded much later by Odysseus, potentially after the Trojan War. These conflicting narratives create a significant disparity in historical timelines, with Rome's foundation potentially occurring 500 years earlier or the Trojan War happening 500 years later than commonly believed. The history of Western Europe, including the chronicles of Rome, Greece, and Egypt, intertwines, influencing changes in architecture, governance, and societal norms across associated states. Modern dating practices, starting from the birth of Christ or the beginning of our era, are relatively recent phenomena. The calculation of Christ's birth year, attributed to the Roman monk Dionysius the Small in the 6th century AD, occurred more than 5 centuries after the event. The debate over this date persisted, and it wasn't until 1431 that it gained widespread acceptance in papal documents. The Star of Bethlehem, described in the Gospels, has been a subject of astronomical inquiry. Some researchers suggest it might have been a supernova explosion between 1110 and 1170 AD, rather than an event from 2 millennia ago. Chronology is a complex art, requiring knowledge of various calendar systems, eclipse analysis, and the ability to decipher ancient texts accurately. Medieval chronologies often relied on delicate astronomical observations, sometimes resulting in significant errors, like dating events based on equinoxes. Scale-Igerian chronology, constructed on such methods, is the version widely accepted today. However, historical accuracy faces challenges. Written texts, the foundation of history, may present conflicting accounts due to discrepancies in dates, names, or interpretations. The passage of time can alter language and meaning, leading to confusion in historical records. For example, variations in names like Paris or Prussia in ancient texts could refer to different cities altogether. Interpreting historical texts requires meticulous attention to detail and an understanding of linguistic evolution over time. For instance, consider the variation in names mentioned in texts, such as Charles, which translates to balls in French and carros in Spanish. This raises questions about whether we're discussing English generals from the French court or Spanish grant recipients. Accurate dating relies heavily on correctly interpreting ancient texts, which often present challenges. Many preserved lists of Egyptian pharaohs contain only names, lacking dates and deeds. Egyptologists have compiled dynasties and timelines based on these names, often making approximate calculations and assuming each ruler held power for precisely 33 years. Unfortunately, this approach persists today, with historians mainly working off pre-established tables without thorough verification. While Greek written texts on Egyptian history exist, Indian history lacks such documents, relying instead on legends, folk tales, and sparse documentary evidence. The construction of ancient Indian history often depends on accounts from Greek geographers or Arab travelers, despite their occasional inability to accurately pinpoint locations. Abbreviated notations further complicate historical accuracy. In medieval chronologies, the 3rd century after Christ could simply be denoted as X3, where X represents the first letter of Christ. This abbreviation could also be interpreted as Roman numeral X, adding 1,000 years to the date. Similarly, I representing the first letter of Jesus could signify either 300 years or the year 300 AD. Misinterpretations of chronicles have led to significant historical inaccuracies. For example, the dating of events before Christ's birth shifted by centuries due to the misinterpretation of abbreviations in historical sources. Medieval maps also offer insights into historical perceptions. While modern maps typically place the east on the right and the west on the left, medieval maps sometimes inverted this orientation. Nautical charts from the 14th century, like those from Atlas Pietro Vescont, depict the Black Sea with the north at the bottom and the south at the top, showing the Crimean Peninsula upside down. Similarly, some maps of the Mediterranean Sea position the east on the left and the west on the right, challenging conventional spatial understanding. Maps from the past often offer unconventional perspectives. In some maps, Africa appears above Spain, while England and France are depicted upside down, with France on the left and England on the right. These deviations from traditional geography highlight the instability of medieval cartography, where the same names could be assigned to entirely different locations. Linking historical events to geographical names on modern maps can be misleading, as they may not align with historical realities. An 18th century map from the Encyclopaedia Britannica portrays the Russian Empire as several separate entities, including Moscow Tartary and Chinese Tartary, challenging modern understandings of historical geography. Despite the credibility of Britannica at the time, such discrepancies are often overlooked or dismissed by contemporary historians. In museums, artifacts are displayed as evidence supporting the accepted version of history. However, inconsistencies arise, such as bronze items attributed to periods before the discovery of tin, a crucial component of bronze alloy. Similarly, iron objects found in ancient Egyptian tombs raise questions about the origins of ironworking in that era. Historical mysteries persist, like the presence of iron objects in ancient Egyptian artifacts, which some historians attribute to meteorites despite evidence suggesting industrial production. The longevity of glass vessels challenges conventional timelines, with some claiming to date back centuries earlier than expected. A call for logic in historical analysis is made, suggesting that the teaching of social sciences should incorporate logical reasoning to navigate historical complexities effectively. Reviving the teaching of logic could enhance historical understanding and prevent the loss of important perspectives and insights. There are many aspects that historians tend to overlook or avoid discussing because they challenge accepted historical narratives and chronologies. Consider medieval paintings depicting events like the Passion of Christ. These artworks often portray lush vegetation and water bodies like rivers or straits in Palestine, despite the geographical reality of Jerusalem lacking such features. For instance, paintings from St. Lawrence's Cathedral in Nuremberg and the Cathedral in Aachen depict scenes with prominent bodies of water and lush landscapes, incongruent with the actual geography of Jerusalem. Additionally, peculiar details such as a man wearing a fur hat with ear flaps in a crucifixion scene suggest the artist's interpretation of the climate in Jerusalem. In Sweden's Royal Palace Museum in Uppsala, a unique portrayal of the Stations of the Cross features riders wearing turbans and crescent-topped flag poles, hinting at the influence of different cultural perceptions. Medieval artists often depicted biblical figures like Joshua or characters from classical mythology and contemporary attire, blending historical eras. Engravings from the Florentine Chronicle and icons like the Annunciation showcase this tendency, where ancient figures are portrayed in medieval settings or attire. These anachronisms challenge traditional historical interpretations and highlight the complexity of understanding history. Petrarch's writings, for example, question the accuracy of historical accounts, emphasizing discrepancies between accepted chronologies and historical events. Furthermore, the distinction between historical artifacts and written histories is crucial. While written histories are subject to interpretation and manipulation, artifacts provide tangible connections to the past. Even artifacts are not immune to falsification, as seen in recent scandals involving the forgery of frescoes in German churches. Overall, these overlooked aspects underscore the need for a deeper understanding of history, one that acknowledges the complexities of interpretation, the limitations of written accounts, and the potential for manipulation or falsification of historical evidence. Beneath the Layers of Plaster, a 13th-century painting was unveiled. Following the war in 1948, efforts were made to restore the frescoes by enlisting the expertise of a certain Dietrich, known for his restoration work despite facing accusations of art forgery. Lothár's assistant, Mars the Cat, was also involved, boasting considerable skill in forgery detection. Upon completion of the restoration, it was announced that an ancient painting had been revealed on the walls of the church choir, hidden beneath later layers. After 3 years of meticulous work, the grand opening coincided with the city's 700th anniversary, and the event was commemorated with a postal brand. Despite the recognition, Dietrich and Amal were the only ones acknowledged for their work, leaving Scat feeling slighted. In a public confession, Scat revealed that, at the behest of the fairy, he had removed the original frescoes from 13 centuries ago and replaced them with new ones. An investigation by a special commission uncovered further discrepancies, including frescoes featuring faces resembling historical figures such as Genghis Khan and Rasputin. The scandal deepened as other forged masterpieces were discovered, including fake frescoes in the Church of St. Catherine. It was revealed that not only had the original plaster been removed but also that the frescoes had been directly replaced to give the illusion of restoration. This incident raises questions about the reliability of dating ancient wall paintings and the prevalence of forgery in the art restoration industry. Additionally, it challenges conventional historical narratives, such as the origins of ethnic groups like the Slavs, and prompts reconsideration of the mysterious disappearance of civilizations like the Etruscans. The revelation that Russian letters closely resemble the Etruscan alphabet adds another layer of complexity to historical understanding, suggesting connections between ancient civilizations and modern linguistic heritage. This leads, to say the least, to a significant revision of human history and a re-evaluation of traditional views on the Mongol Empire itself, which once dominated European civilizations. European nations, once considered central to world history, are now depicted as peripheral players, while the Mongols are portrayed as wild nomads emerging from the deserts of Mongolia to conquer vast territories. Russian universities teach that the Mongols, viewed as a horde of nomads, swept through Russia, conquering powerful states and even venturing into Western Europe and Egypt. However, this narrative lacks concrete evidence, as no chronicles or government papers in Mongolian exist from that era. Only in Russia are there remnants of that time, in spiritual letters and church documents, suggesting a different story. Perhaps the Russian scientist Leo was correct in refuting the theory of the Mongol-Tatar yoke in Rus, suggesting it was a fabrication influenced by foreign ideas. Another enigma of Russian history is the presence of Arabic inscriptions on old Russian weapons, indicating a proficiency in Arabic language and culture. Russian czars, such as Ivan the Terrible, challenge conventional perceptions of their power and influence. Despite being portrayed as weak in Western narratives, Ivan's letters to European monarchs reveal a different story. In one letter to Gustav I of Sweden, Ivan asserts his dominance, considering Europe his patrimony and local monarchs as vassals. In his correspondence with Queen Elizabeth I of England, Ivan maintains a respectful tone, referring to himself as we and addressing her with reverence. These revelations challenge historical narratives and highlight the complexity of Russia's role in shaping world history. The dismissive tone from historians regarding Ivan the Terrible's mental health is juxtaposed with the recognition of his pedigree by European monarchs. This raises questions about Ivan's true lineage and whether he could indeed be a descendant of Augustus, separated by 1,500 years or even less. Another example of national heritage is the Old Slavonic Bible, which was gifted to Henry I's wife, Princess Anna Yaroslavna, daughter of Yaroslav the Wise. This Bible was used for many centuries in the coronation of French kings. The question arises, why did this Slavic Bible hold such value for Catholic kings and Henry I personally? Perhaps the marriage alliance between Yaroslav's daughter and the French monarch elevated its significance. Throughout the centuries, many absurdities in history were overlooked by even the most esteemed minds of their time. Scholars face challenges in reconciling data from various chronicles with the Scaligierian version of chronology, as advocated by Isaac Newton in the 18th century. Newton proposed revisions that pushed events dating back earlier, suggesting a need for a re-evaluation of chronology. Doubts about ancient works being forgeries, expressed by Jean Gardou and others, highlight the skepticism towards established authority, particularly in theology and archaeology. Mikhail Lomonosov criticized the German version of Russian history crafted by Miller and Bayer in the 18th century, likening their interpretations to the ramblings of delusional individuals. Robert Boldoff, a 19th century German philologist, observed similarities between the styles of ancient poets like Homer and the medieval troubadours, suggesting Italian Renaissance humanist influences. Theodor Mommsen, a prominent German historian, highlighted discrepancies in Roman chronology, particularly in events like the founding of Rome, which were dated with a 500-year gap. Nikolai Morozov, a 20th century Russian mathematician, continued the tradition of questioning historical chronology, particularly in ancient civilizations like Egypt and Mesopotamia. These scholars and their critiques underscore the ongoing debate and revisionism within historical scholarship. The fate of Nikolai Morozov wasn't easy. At the age of 20, amidst the harsh frosts, he joined Narodnaya Volya. In 1881, he received a life sentence and was imprisoned in the Schleswig fortress, where he independently studied chemistry, physics, astronomy, mathematics, and history. Released in 1905, after nearly 25 years of incarceration, Morozov engaged in active scientific and pedagogical pursuits. Following the October Revolution, he became the director of the Lsgaft Institute of Natural Science. Morozov advanced the hypothesis that Scale-Igerian chronology, which extends antiquity artificially, should be revised down to the 6th century. This hypothesis was based on discovered textual discrepancies, suggesting that the same events in historical texts were dated differently due to transposition or translation errors by chroniclers. Consequently, events were perceived as unrelated and placed independently on the chronological axis, resulting in the formation of phantom duplicates and reflections of real historical periods. The chronicles reveal dynasties of rulers with remarkably similar biographies, such as Octavian Augustus and Constantine the Great, both originating from non-noble families, marked by predecessors, and meeting similar fates. Despite these parallels, the question arises, does historical chronology significantly impact the modern layman's life? When Rome was founded or when wars occurred affect everyday happiness, success, or wealth? Historians fear criticisms of chronology, as historical decisions based on flawed chronology have led to catastrophic results in the past. Chronology underpins the entire structure of history, shaping our understanding of culture, language, and civilization names. Altering historical dates can drastically change our interpretation of modern events, shedding new light on 19th century phenomena like K-pop. Therefore, historians must carefully determine historical dates using various methods, ensuring the reliability and accuracy of historical narratives.